This is the homework video guide for section 1.6. And for the very first question, I need to find each product, so that means multiply. So for question 1a, all you have to do for this question is multiply the inside numbers. So 3 times 5 is going to be 15, so this answer is going to be root 15. Next one, 13 times 13 is going to be 169, so the square root of 169, and the square root of 169 is going to be 13. All right, so we're just multiplying for the very first question here. So 2 times 11 is going to be 22, so this will be the square root of 22. For letter G, I have 4 times 5, so this will be the cube root because there's a cube root here and a cube root there. So 4 times 5 is going to be 20, so the cube root of 20. And for letter I, since we have a cube root here, a cube root there, and a cube root there, we can leave our answer as the cube root of a number. And 2 times 3 is going to be 6, and 6 times 5 is going to be 30. So the cube root of 30 for question 1i. Okay, let's move on to question number 3 now. So simplify to a mixed root. So I'll do this 2 different ways. So I know that 20 is the same thing as 4 times 5. And then I can break this down into individual radicals. So root 4 times root 5. And root 4 is going to be 2, and the root 5 will remain, so the answer is 2 root 5. So that's method number 1, 2 root 5. Another method that sometimes students prefer is breaking this down using a tree. So you need to think of 2 numbers that multiply to 20, so that could be 2 and 10. And this is a prime, so that one stops. And then with the 10, you can break that down into 2 and 5. And since these are prime numbers, you can stop here and there. And what you want to look for is a pair, right? So here's a pair right here. So when you have a pair, the pair is a 2. Will go on the outside, and then on the inside will be the number that doesn't have a pair, so that's 2 root 5. So that's another way where you can get 2 root 5. So you can use a tree diagram, or if you know your multiplications steps pretty well, you can also jump to 2 root 5 right away. For letter B here, the fastest way to do this is if you think of 72, what are 2 numbers that multiply to 72? So I'm thinking of 36 and 2. So that can be 36 times 2. And then I can break this up into 2 individual radicals. So root 36 times root 2. And the square root of 36 is going to be, that's going to be 6, right? So my final answer is 6 root 2. Okay, so that's one way where you could do that particular question. And if you're good with that, you can stop. Other than that, let me show you method number 2 here. So another method that some students prefer is breaking this down using a tree diagram. So you need to think of 2 numbers that multiply 72, maybe 6 and 12. Now it doesn't really matter what numbers you pick. I just pick 6 and 12 by random. And then 6 can break down into 3 and 2. And then 12 can break down into 4 and 3. And then this 4 can break down into 2 and 2. And then just kind of put a little line on all the prime numbers here. And what you want to do here is you want to look for groups. So here's a group of 2. All right, so that will be on the outside. Now that's all done. And then there's also a group of 3, right? So here's a 3 and there's a 3. So that will pair up and that will go on the outside as well. So it's a single 3. And then you have this 2 that doesn't have a pair, so that will go on the inside as a 2. Then ask yourself, what is 2 times 3? 2 times 3 is 6, so you get 6 root 2. All right, so if you want to use that method, you still get the same answer. Method number 2, the tree diagram does take a little bit more work, but if you can't break down the number very quickly in your head, then using a tree diagram, method number 2 is also very effective. Okay, let's move on to letter C. So I'll solve this problem using 2 different methods here. So 2 numbers that multiply to 45, I'm thinking of probably 9 and 5. So 9 times 5 is 45, right? And then I can break this down to 2 radicals. So this is going to be root 9 times root 5. And what's the square root of 9? Well, the square root of 9 is going to be 3, so the answer is 3 root 5. So that's how you do that particular question using method number 1. If you want to use method number 2 by using a tree diagram, you can. So think of 2 numbers that multiply to 45. That could be, let's see, 45 and 5. So maybe just 9 times 5. And the 9 can break down into 3 and 3. And then since this is a prime, that's a prime, that's a prime, you can stop breaking down your tree. And there's your pair, right? So the pairs go on the outside, and the non-pairs go back inside the radical, so you get 3 root 5. Okay, so that was method 2 for that particular problem. For letter D here, square root of 24. So if you want to think of two numbers that multiply 24, I'm thinking about maybe 4 times 6. So 4 times 6. And then you can break this down into two individual radicals. And then root 4 is going to be 2. And then the root 6 remains on the outside. So 2 root 6. All right, so that's method number 1. For method number 2, you could break this down using a tree diagram. I'll use 2 and 12 to just kind of try two different numbers. Now 2 is a prime number, so I can stop there. 12, I can break that down to 2 and 6. This is a prime, so I can stop there. And then 6 can be 2 and 3. And that's a prime, and that's a prime. So I can stop breaking down my tree diagram. Here's a group right here, a group of 2. So that will go on the outside as a single 2. And then since these two numbers here, they don't have a pair, they go back on the inside as 2 times 3. And 2 times 3 is going to be 6, right? So my final answer is going to be 2 root 6. So you get the same answer. Okay, let's move on to letter E here. Okay, so letter E, I got 75. So I'm thinking of two numbers that multiply 75. I'm thinking about 25 and 3. Then I can break this down into more individual radicals. So 25 times root 3. And the square root of 25 is going to be 5. So 5 root 3 is the final answer. And I won't use method number 2 there because 25 and 3 work quite well. Okay, and for letter F, I need two numbers that multiply to 125. So I'm thinking of 25, 25, and 5. So 25 times 5 is 125. And then I can break this down into two individual radicals. And then the square root of 25 is going to be 5, and then root 5 on the outside there. So 5 root 5 is your final answer. Okay, for letter G here, let's do this. Solve this problem using two different methods again. Okay, so I need two numbers that multiply to 140. So if you know that off the top of your head, that could be, it's a tough one there. So 140. I'm thinking of 4 times 35. And then we can break this up into two individual radicals. So root 4 times root 35. And root 4 is going to be 2. And root 35 I can leave as root 35. So 2 root 35 is your final answer. And then I'll solve this problem using the tree method here. So if you prefer the tree method, think of two numbers that multiply 140. And if you're not sure, I would use maybe 2 to get started. So 140 divided by 2 is going to be 70. So 2 times 70. 2 is a prime, so we can stop there. 70, I'm thinking of maybe, I don't know, 7 and 10. That's a prime, so I can stop there. And then 10, I can break that down into 2 and 5. And these are prime. That's a prime, and that's a prime. Okay, so what are your pairs here? So here's a pair right here, the 2 and the 2. So that will be on the outside. And then on the inside, you have this 7 and that 5. So 7 times 5 is going to be 35. So 2 root 35 using the tree diagram as well. And for the next one here, the square root of 128. So two numbers that multiply to 128. I'm thinking of 64 times 2. And then you can break that up into two individual radicals. Square root of 64 is going to be 8. And then 8 times root 2. So 8 times root 2 is your final answer. So obviously method number 1 is a faster way to do these problems, but if you're not, if you can't find the perfect square roots quickly, you can always break these down using a tree diagram using method number 2. So the square root of 128, think of two numbers that multiply to 128. If you're not sure, always start with 2. And 128 divided by 2 is going to be 64. And then 64 is 8 times 8. And from there, I guess I can stop there because there's my pair right there. So that's on the outside. And then what's on the inside there is a 2. Okay, so that's there, and that is there. Okay, so 8 root 2 is the final answer for that one. Okay, square root of, negative root 80. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to 80. If you're pretty quick, you can probably use 16 and 5. So 16 times 5. And then you can break this up into two individual radicals. So root 16 times root 5. The square root of 16 is going to be 4, right? So negative 4 root 5 is a final answer for that one there. Okay. And once again, for this particular problem, I will also use method number 2. So two numbers that multiply to 80, let's say 2 and 40. And that's a prime, so I can stop. 40 could be 2 and 20. That 2 is a prime, so I can stop. 20, I can use 2 and 10. So that's a prime, I can stop. And finally, for 10, I can use 2 and 5. And these are prime numbers, so I can stop there. Okay, so there's one group there, and there's another group there. So that group comes off as a single 2. This comes off as a single 2. And then finally the root 5, or sorry, the 5 there that doesn't have a pair, that will go on the inside. So this will be 4 root 5. And then remember there's a minus sign at the front, right? So that minus sign can just transfer over there to give you negative 4 root 5. All right, so there's the tree method if you prefer the tree method. Okay, and let's finish off with letter J for this first part of this homework video guide here. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to 160 there on the inside, so minus on the outside. And two numbers that multiply to 160, I'm thinking of 16 and 10. And then you can break this up into two individual radicals, so root 16 times root 10. And then root 16, this one's a nice one there, so that's going to be 4. And then the root 10 will remain. So your final answer is negative 4 times root 10. Okay, and just before I finish this first part of the homework video guide, if you prefer to use a tree diagram, you can. So two numbers that multiply to 160, let's just use 2. And half of 160 is going to be 80. And that's a prime, so I can stop right there. And then let's use 2 again, so 2 and 40. And 2 is a prime, so I can stop there. 40 could be 2 and 20. And 2 is a prime, so I can stop there. 20 could be 2 and 10. So this is a prime, so I can stop there. And finally, there's 2 and 5. So there's a prime, I can stop there. Okay, so if you prefer to use a tree method, that's totally fine. Here's a pair, there's a pair, and clearly this part right here is not a pair, right? So the first pair, this group of 2 here can go on the outside like that. The green 2s can be over there. And this can go on the inside as 10. All right, and if I go ahead and multiply 2 times 2, that's going to be 4 root 10. And there's a minus sign there, and that minus sign can just tag along. So negative 4 root 10 is the same answer using the tree diagram. Okay, so that's it for this first part of this homework video guide, and I will create part 2 soon.